Hi everyone, welcome to another day of our So It's Christmas product reviews. Today I am making two breeze dresses, so I'm going to take the opportunity to show you all about bias binding. First of all, I'm going to show you how to make your own bias binding using the bias makers that we have in store, and then I'm going to show you how I attach them and also how to use the picket edge binding, which you will also find in the Tada store. So first off, I'm making a 25mm binding at the moment. So I'm using the 25mm bias binding maker. I've cut a strip of bias which is 2 inches wide, and basically to cut the bias you just cut along your fabric at a 45-degree angle, so diagonally across the fabric. Now to make the bias, you insert the fabric into the end of the bias maker here and keep pushing it until it comes out the other side. You might need a pin or something to, you can use a pin in this little hole here. I'll just show you. So if you put the pin through that little hole, you can kind of push the fabric along so it's going through. Once you've got it going through, you'll see that it's automatically folding it so that the two sides are towards the middle. So what I do is I just pull it out a little way. So you've got it started, and I stick my iron on the end, leave it there for a little bit to do its thing, and then once you're ready, all you do is slide the bias maker along and follow it with your iron. So slide it along, follow with the iron. I'll just move it back towards the middle so you can see. So slide the bias maker along and follow it with the iron. Very, very easy. Once you've done that, all you need to do then is fold it in half to create double fold bias, and then press again. So as you can see, it is very, very easy to do. Very easy to make your own bias. And then you have perfectly matched bias for whatever you're making. So that's the end of that quick little toot, how to make your own bias binding. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to attach your homemade bias binding. So this is the bias that I made with the Clover bias maker that you saw earlier. And what you want to do first is find which side is folded over slightly less. So I don't know if you can see that there, but you can see the top side here is folded slightly less. So underneath is a tiny bit longer. You want the shorter side to be at the top because it's going to make it easier for you to stitch without accidentally not catching the bottom edge. So the shorter side goes on the top. And you're going to start off by laying your fabric sandwiched in between. So the edge of your fabric is right in the middle of the bias, and then fold your bias over. So that's how you get started. And then I like to, once that's all perfectly lined up, lay it under the presser foot and then just get it prepared the rest of the way down. So making sure that the fabric is right up in the middle there and fold it over. And then you just kind of, you can, if you roll your finger along here or slide it along there, you'll feel the edge of the bias binding below. So it's a good way to check that it's all in place and nothing's kind of slipped out of the way there. And then you can start sewing. As you're sewing, you want to be going only a millimetre or two to the right of the bias edge. So just a millimetre or two off the edge is where you're going to sew. And you need to take it really slow with bias, constantly checking that your fabric is in the middle, using your finger to slide along and make sure the bias below is in the right spot as well. So we'll keep going along, checking as you go. And doing it with homemade bias is slightly more difficult than with pre-made bias, just because this is not pressed to within an inch of its life like pre-made bias is. So there's more potential for it to kind of move out of place or for the bottom edge to not be caught. So you need to be really careful making sure when you're sewing. Okay, it's looking good. So in the next video I will show you how to use pre-made picket edge bias, which, like I said, is slightly easier because it's just so well pressed. But that's how you do it with your homemade bias. If you have a look on the inside, it's pretty good, really pretty well. So that's how you attach your homemade bias. This is on the edge of the breeze dress, which hopefully will be coming out before Christmas. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to attach picket edge bias. And when you pull the picket edge bias out, you'll see that there's one side that sits just a tiny bit smaller than the other. Can you see that? So the one on top is just the tiniest little bit smaller. That's the one to have on top when you're sewing. So what you're going to do is just wrap it around the edge of your fabric so that the edge of your fabric is sitting right in the middle there, in that fold. Then fold it over. You've got to make sure that your fabric is sitting right down in there the whole time. Otherwise, if it starts to kind of creep out, then your bias isn't going to hold and it might tear apart when it's washed or being worn. So make sure the fabric's right in there, and then pop it under your machine, and you're going to sew as close as you can to this edge here. As you're going along, just keep opening up the bias and checking that your fabric is tucked right in there. So I'll start. All right, we're off. So every now and then just stop, reposition, make sure your fabric's tucked in, and then off you go again. And tucking it in again. So I'm making a breeze dress at the moment, which is a dress I'm hoping to release before Christmas. And the back and the neckline of the dress are both finished with bias bindings. So I'm hoping these videos will help you all when I do finally release the breeze dress. So I'm still just tucking the fabric in right up against that middle bit there. Keep going along. Till we get to the end. And that's how you attach picket edged bias. It's really very simple because it's pressed so thoroughly at the factory. It's perfect, ready to go. And there's the inside. And I should have used matching thread, but I didn't. There you go. That's how you attach picket edge bias.